not only has he shown he knows what he's doing, he shows that, God, he might be one of the best in-game coaches in all of college basketball.
Jake, I feel like every time that I talk to you, things are getting better and better every single time. It could be the fact that Louisville just had an 8-0 January. Excuse me. Could be the fact that Louisville had an 8-0 January. Could be the fact that Louisville's on a 10-game winning streak. Starting 502 podcasts, powered by the State of Louisville Podcast Network. I'm Preston Meyer. On the other end, that's Jake Hook, and we are here to talk some Louisville basketball. And Jake, there's no shortage of things to talk about. I think we could talk for 2 hours, and this could be, like we'd still be going strong, right? Like this has just been everything we hoped for and more. When Pat Kelsey was hired, excuse me for knocking in my mic. When Pat Kelsey was hired, could you have ever envisioned Louisville basketball being where it is right now? It's 16-5 on the season, in second place in the ACC, with maybe a chance of running the table the rest of the way in the regular season. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think coming into the season, my loftiest expectations were make the tournament, finish top 4 in the ACC, and like truly just show us that you know what you're doing, because we've seen 2 years of a person who didn't know what he was doing. And not only has he shown he knows what he's doing, he shows that, God, he might be one of the best in-game coaches in all of college basketball. So, I mean, it's been super impressive. Top 2 in the ACC and a 100% chance of making the NCAA tournament now. So, yeah, he's exceeded everything that I could have possibly imagined.
Yeah, I mean, outside of knock on wood, knock on some wood, everybody, if you're listening, outside of another injury or outside of just something completely unforeseen, this is a season where Louisville is on a path to a pretty high seed in the NCAA tournament, where they are in very serious conversation for an ACC title. They have clearly proven themselves right now as the second best team in the ACC. What more can you say? Everything that can go right is going right now, to the point where Louisville playing an 8-minute stretch that was very lackadaisical to finish the Wake Forest game on Tuesday night feels like the end of the world all of a sudden. And it's crazy how that's changed, because that 8 minutes was basically what we saw for 2 straight years under Kenny Payne, with very few exceptions. And it almost feels surreal. It almost feels surreal. Like this is, I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, it is so impressive. I was kind of crunching the numbers as you were talking in this 10-game win streak. Like, not only are we winning, but like, when's the last time we had a close game? Like Pittsburgh, I guess that 4-point win, like that was a competitive game at Pittsburgh. That was 5 games ago. Outside of that, our closest game was the EKU game where Noah Waterman had to save us with a last second layup. But yeah, I looked it up. We're averaging, our average margin of victory during this win streak is 14 points. And I'm looking at it right now, and we've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the top 100 in the net. So like, it's not like we're just playing, not like we're just playing Miami and like Virginia Tech and Cal and all the worst teams in the ACC. We're actually playing some quality opponents. So it has been such a fun ride. I have not been this into Louisville basketball. I'm standing up for 90% of the games now. Like once we got up by 25, I probably sat a little bit, but like that whole entire first half, I'm standing up, I'm screaming, I'm cussing in a positive way. I'm having so much fun. So like when Tyler missed that layup, oh my God, I wish I was in the crowd just to heckle in that moment. It was incredible.
It is, yeah. This was the part of the schedule where I think in the preseason we were like, okay, kind of get through the gauntlet of the non-conference schedule. Let's see where you stand from there. And then once you get into conference play, then it's very front loaded, right? Like let's finish this early part of conference play 500, and then you have some opportunities where it kind of eases off down the stretch. And Louisville just ran the table. And like you said, Jake, 8 of those 10 games they've won by 10 plus points. In the close game against Pittsburgh, I mean, they really played probably their C game, and then just kind of pull a win out of their ass, right? Against EKU, just found a way to win. But there's other games: Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, Virginia twice, Syracuse, SMU, Wake Forest. These are all blowouts. These are games that were not even close, like for after the first 5 minutes of the game. And even in the Wake Forest game on Tuesday night, at the first time out, it's 6-5, right? But Wake Forest has 5 points and 5 turnovers, and you just felt from that moment like, okay, this team can't play with us. And Louisville absolutely, once the shots started falling, like it was game over. They came out and punched them in the mouth, and they were clearly the better team in a game where we were like, yeah, this is a game, this is an opportunity to slip up. This is a team that like their NCAA tournament hopes are on the line in this game. They have to notch a quad one win, and doing so on the road at Louisville would like really bolster their NCAA tournament resume. And no, I mean Louisville came out and punched them in the mouth. They're up 24 at halftime, push it out to a 29-point lead, and then coast to a win for the last 15 minutes. I mean, when you hired Pat Kelsey, this is not what you expected. Like this is so far above and beyond, and not to mention the fact that this is a team where all 13 of the scholarship players were on different teams last year. And this is a team where, you basically have four guys that have been injury riddled. You're blowing out SMU and Wake Forest without Noah Waterman. You're doing this without your most significant contributor in Cason Pryor. Like all of these things are really piling up, and Louisville has just found a way to circumvent all of the negatives. I mean, we saw right like when Cason Pryor went down against Oklahoma, we were like, yeah, happy Black Friday, season's over, right?
Hmm.
Like that was kind of the thought was like, okay, when your most productive player, the guy that handles the ball or not handles the ball, but plays go through him more than anybody else, including Chucky Hepburn on both sides of the ball. One of your best defenders, one of your best kind of all around utility tool type of players goes down, right? You've done a lot of this without the contributions of Kadir Traore as well. So lots of injuries, lots of obstacles to overcome. Like we said, one of the tougher stretches of the season, and yet Louisville is playing like one of the best teams in the country. I mean, the metrics will say that in January, Louisville was one of the top 10 teams in the country. And that is, I mean, could not be I could not be more impressed right now. By the way, Daisy Hater 101 is probably just screaming and pounding his fist right now as
He's
Daisy gives
punched
you
a hole
kisses
through the
on the podcast.
drywall.
Just
Yeah.
punching holes. We're sorry, Daisy Hater.
Yeah,
No, I
Daisy
mean,
Hater needs to know she's an 8-month-old puppy, and she can't go
right.
more than 3 minutes without attention. But yeah, continue on. It's been beyond my wildest dreams.
I think, the one thing that's really hit home with me as well throughout all of this is just how big Louisville basketball is. And I know that sounds, that's a little bit too overarching of a way to kind of go about this, but it's really fascinating to see the next generation of fans embracing this as well, right? Like if you are if you are a 12-year-old and your parents have raised you as a Louisville fan, well, most of what you know in like your in any of your memories of Louisville basketball has been 95% misery, right? So like we have a 10-year-old here at home. He was born the year that Louisville won the national championship, and it was just a steady decline downward for the most part. I mean, there was a small stretch where Louisville was number one in the country in 2019-20, but I mean, basically since COVID, especially, like this cat he doesn't remember Louisville being in the top 25. He doesn't remember Louisville beating North Carolina and Virginia. I mean, well, no, none of us really remember beating Virginia, but when you see, like, when you look back and you look at some of the major plays in the Center on Tuesday night against Wake Forest, uh, one thing I pointed out on Twitter was, watch the kids in the crowd. Like they're feeling the joy that we felt growing up becoming Louisville basketball fans for the first time. There is a group of people in this world that have not known Louisville basketball to be up to the standard that it's supposed to be up to. And I mean, that's the most that's what brings me the most joy is seeing that we're back as a community too. Like basketball means so much to this community. And it's different now. Like I went into work this morning, right? Kentucky notched a big win on the road at Tennessee last night. Louisville blows out Wake Forest, like blows the doors off of Wake Forest. you can look, it's a different game in there. Everybody's talking about the games last night. Everybody's excited. We're having one less cup of coffee just because we're so jacked up about basketball in this tournament right now. Uh, I mean, it's I'm almost at a lot, like you said, Jake, almost at a loss for words with how impressive this has been because it's not like they've just strung together, a bunch of close wins. It is they're coming in the gates. They are the better team. Other teams do not know how to combat them. Louisville knows your plays. Louisville is the more prepared team. They're the better, more experienced team. And it's unprecedented the way that Pat Kelsey has come in and taken 13 brand new players that have never played together before, for the most part, have never played together before, have never been coached by this group of coaches, and turned them into a cohesive unit of destruction. And they are starting to show it on the defensive end. They're clearly a top 25 team offensively in the country. They can win every which way, right? Like they can win when teams try to slow it down. They can win when teams try to speed it up. They can dictate the pace. They can play the style of play that they want to play. But if they don't, they're still finding ways to win. They're still finding different ways to blow you out. It's a different leading scorer every single night. You have different guys stepping up in different instances. It's just the conglomeration of so much hard work over Pat Kelsey and his coaching staff's careers to get to this point, and you're seeing just so much hard work come to fruition. And it's I can't imagine it getting much better than this early in someone's tenure.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Wake Forest game kind of epitomizes exactly who Pat Kelsey is and what we've seen. Because this was, like everyone said, a chance for all of our momentum to go away. Because Wake Forest is a good team. This was, besides the Duke game that they played on Saturday, this was their biggest game remaining on the year. They went into that game with a 42% chance of making the tournament. If they beat us, that bumps up to above 50%. Instead, they lost to us. Now they've only got a 34% chance of making the tournament. So, I mean, like, this game could not have been any bigger for Wake Forest. And Louisville came out and knew exactly what Wake Forest wanted to do. Knew they ran their offense through their three guards, through Salas, through Tylor, through Hildreth. Their offense, I kind of hate it. Their defense is solid, very, very good. But their offense, I kind of hate it. It's literally just fuck it, give it to Salas, give it to Tylor, give it to Hildreth. They're going to figure something out. See what happens. They held those three to 23 points on 28 shots, under
Crazy.
35% shooting, forced 9 turnovers. They only had 5 assists. Our three guards, Chucky, Reyne, and Terrence, had 48 points and had 10 assists, only 6 turnovers. So, I mean, it was just, we knew exactly what Wake Forest wanted to do, how they were going to be able to win this game. And Chucky, Terrence, Abubakar, everybody, Javon, everybody said, no, you're not beating us that way. Beat us in another way. And they couldn't. And I mean, outside of the last 8 minutes of the game, that was complete and utter domination.
Yeah. Longest win streak since that 2019-20 season. If people don't remember the season, that was ended by COVID, where Louisville was, I mean, one of the best teams in the country, ranked number one for a little while. So that's kind of the territory that you're in right now with this team. The next longest win streak to kind of to knock out in the last couple of decades is obviously that 2012 2013 team. But yeah, I mean, this team in a sense, it reminds me of that AAC year where, you still have a really solid nucleus, Sans, Peyton Siva, and Gorgie Zhang, that was, just tearing through the AAC. If you remember that AAC conference tournament where they were winning games by 60, uh,
Yeah, we beat
it
UConn
was
by like 30, and then they won the damn national championship.
yeah. I mean that was the year that I think a lot of people felt that they could have gone back to back if only they didn't run into that Kentucky team, the only team in the tournament that you did not want to face. And they did have a substantial lead on Kentucky in that game as well. But regardless, this team reminds me of that team in a lot of ways because of the way that it just asserts its will and can just blow you out of the building. Like it's, I think it's becoming that way too because of their defensive identity. Even though the depth is lacking a little bit, right? Like they really only played 7 guys for the first 16 minutes against Wake Forest. You don't bring Frank Ansel in until the back half of that first half. Really, I mean, you're running with 7 guys, and it doesn't matter. They're so well conditioned that they go over every screen. They're fighting for every rebound. They're diving for loose balls up 23. Like it has not mattered. The effort has been consistent, especially when it matters the most. I think that the defensive end has really kind of sprung Louisville forward, really propelled them in this winning streak because they've changed their identity as a team, right? Like they starting out were much more of a run and gun. Rebounds don't matter as much. Get more possessions, get the ball up the floor. It's okay if they score sometimes, we'll get it back. And it's changed a little bit, right? Like you're seeing the possessions get lower and lower each game. And I think a big part of that is that Louisville defensively has just been just locked in. I think another factor as well on the defensive end is Fat Edwards. He's done a fantastic job of really asserting himself as a defensive player. Fat Edwards heading into the Wake Forest game, the 6 games prior to Wake Forest, Fat Edwards shooting 15% from beyond the 3-point line. Yeah, not the best. It doesn't matter because he was still one of the better players on the floor, even with only hitting, I think it was 6 for 39 shots in the last 6 games coming in. A lot better against Wake Forest, but that's kind of become his identity. He went from he was a really solid role player for James Madison for a while, steps up and becomes the guy for James Madison last year. He's kind of really found his niche for Louisville, and it's not necessarily as a primary scorer. While he can do that, and he can do it in spurts, like you saw against Wake. He hits two consecutive threes, and then it's game on, right? Like he's just leaping through 1-3-1 zone, which should, as Jim Boeheim said, never happen. But really putting on a clinic as far as scoring in spurts. But he starts things on the defensive end, and apparently has really challenged himself to defend the other team's best player, to be the yin to Chucky Jiang. And Chucky playing, 35, 40 minutes per game, he needed somebody to step up in that manner. Just because I don't think Reyne Smith has the length and athleticism like a Terrence Edwards does. So I think those are a couple things that have really stood out to me. I know Jake, you talked about free throws, threes, and rebounds, and it was more of the same against Wake Forest.
Yeah, they did end up out rebounding us, I think by like 3, but again, that was
Hmm.
that was the last 9 minutes of the game. We scored
Yeah.
3 points. Like we didn't make a shot essentially for the last 9 minutes of the game. If it wasn't for that, we would have out rebounded them. We made 3 more threes than they did, 11 threes to 8 threes, and then we shot. God, I can't remember what it is. I know they only shot 8 free throws, and I think we made
Hmm.
15 free throws. So again, I mean, we did what we do: beat them in free throws, beat them in threes. I think we were. I wrote it down somewhere, but we ended up outscoring them by like 20 plus points just on threes and free throws alone. So I mean, it was just more of the same. Yeah, Terrence turning into this just defensive stalwart over the last 10-ish games has been incredible. I don't know if there's another defensive backcourt in the ACC that is as dominant as Louisville's is with Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards. I know like UNC has Elliot Cadeau, but RJ Davis isn't a great defender. And I know that there are good perimeter defenders, but I don't know if there's 2 that are as good as these 2. So I mean, it's been incredible. Louisville's just so good on on the defensive end of staying in front of their man, not fouling, which has been huge, and then limiting teams to 1 possession, limiting them to 10 or less offensive rebounds a game. So yeah, the defense, as impressive as the offense has been over the last 10 games, I think the defense is slowly starting to climb up to be just as impressive. If the offense is a 9 out of 10 right now, the defense is climbing up to like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 right now. So that was impressive. I think last thing I wanted, oh, here it is. We scored 9 more points on threes and 10 more points on free throws. So plus
That's the
19.
game.
We won
Yeah.
the game by 13. So yeah, very impressive. Last thing I want to say, I know our guards, Chucky, Terrence, and Reyne stole the show with 14, 18, and 16 points. But I
Hmm.
thought James Scott played another really solid game. Didn't put up
Great
16 like
game.
he did last game, but was really solid, wasn't needed, and also had a 7-footer on him the whole entire game. And I really liked what Kadir Traore did as well. I think he ended up with 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block, like just doing all the little things in only, 18, 20 minutes of play. Every time he was on the court, I was excited. When he got taken off the court, I was like, dang, I really think we should have given him a few more minutes of run there.
Yeah.
So I really liked what I saw from our front court guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it in such an unconventional way, right? Like, and I think that that's a little bit of what throws teams off is they are never, very rarely, unless it's Devon Hadley, in some sets, maybe Terrence Edwards, and maybe like a Reyne Smith or Chucky Hepburn, but mostly Hadley. They're not going back to the basket, right? So they're going five wide, and that really stresses out the defense and makes them hard to defend. On the defensive end, they have overcome their weakness, which is size, essentially, right? Like they don't have a bunch of big men loaded up, that are, these superior, massive defenders, right? What they do have is athleticism. And you see with Kadir Traore, with James Scott, with Javon Hadley, and with Noah Waterman when he's playing, and even in a sense now you're seeing it a little bit with Kenai Reese. Really, as a team, they're defending really well down low, and they're not allowing the opponent to get post up opportunities at all. Like you didn't see opponents coming down the floor, feeding the post, going back to the basket. That does not happen against this team. And so I think that's a big thing to take into consideration as well. Is just the fact that they're not allowing opponents to do what they want to do, and it becomes really frustrating. I mean, you saw it against Wake Forest. Like you saw that they are completely taken out of their rhythm. They can't get into their set plays. Louisville knows their plays. Louisville, like all credit to the coaching staff, right? Like the opponent's running a baseline out of bounds or a sideline out of bounds play, and the coaching staff is waving their arms. He's setting the screen here. Go around this, pick up this guy, or switch, or stay on your man. Like they're adjusting on the fly, but they know what's coming. Like they know when opponents are going to throw certain sets at them. Wake Forest out of a timeout, they know that Pat Kelsey and staff are going to draw something up to get a good look. That's their MO. So Wake Forest out of timeouts is throwing the 1-3-1 at them. Louisville was prepared for the 1-3-1. And they had plays for the 1-3-1. So they're coming out of a timeout with their ATO play, but they're also coming out with a play in case Wake goes into a zone. So Wake goes zone, the next possession down the floor, they go back to man, and then Louisville runs their ATO play. So it's just Louisville is one step ahead of a lot of these teams, which is, something to continue to watch as the season continues to progress. They're going to play a lot of sub 500 teams. They're going to play a lot of sleepy teams, a lot of games that, it might not matter as much to the opponent. And Louisville has to come and bring the same energy. So that'll be something that's interesting to watch. But it'll also be interesting to watch as you get into the postseason, right? Where you're going to be playing better opponents. Like in the postseason, we've talked about this a few times, but you could end up playing SMU and Pitt and then Duke, or UNC and Stanford and then Duke. And then you get into the postseason, and it's a bit of a crapshoot. But as we get closer, we'll have sort of an idea of the 10 or 12 teams that Louisville could potentially face, and it's going to be quality opponents. And so, can Louisville do that? Make those adjustments on the fly against better coach teams, but more prepared teams, teams that have better players that have more cohesion. So that'll be something to watch. But they're going to get a hell of a lot of practice as we're nearing towards the postseason. And it'll be interesting to see if they can stay focused for those last 10 regular season games and not slip up. I think that's a huge component as we're heading into, or nearing closer to the postseason. One thing that I do want to be on the lookout for, though, is a couple of these records that I absolutely think can be broken, especially if Louisville goes deeper into the postseason. Chucky Hepburn and Reyne Smith both have outside chances of breaking the all-time single season school record in assists and 3 points made in the regular season. Now, it's more likely to happen during the postseason, but Reyne Smith right now he needs, as we sit here today, he needs 40 more threes to tie Taekwon Dean's all-time record of 122 in 2004-5. And remember, in 2024-25, Louisville went to the Final Four, so they had, what is that? They played in 5 postseason games in the NCAA tournament and 3 in the Conference USA tournament. So, it would be fantastic if that happened for Louisville this season, obviously, but 40 left over 10 games in the regular season. Very easy math there. Rain needs to average 4 threes per game to tie Taekwon's record in the regular season. I mean, good shot, outside shot of that happening, right? Like, Rain is at 82. Taekwon's all time record is 122. Taekwon also has the number 2 season with 105 a season later in 2005, 2006. So my suspicion is that he will move up on the list after the next game. Dewan Wheat is seventh at 84 in 1994-95. So I mean, very real chance of Reyne breaking this 3-point record, right?
Yeah, I think we saw Reyne free throw percentage, Chucky assist, and then also James Scott for field goal percentage. Those are the four records
Yeah.
that I
Yeah, and then
believe.
James Scott dunks as well. A very outside chance on that. Montrezl Harrell, I believe, had 97 dunks in the record season. James Scott right now, I believe, if I'm doing the quick math, he's at 51. I'll have to go back and double check that. That's not like an easy stat to pull up. But regardless, I mean, there's definitely some chances. The Chucky assist record is one that's fascinating, right? If Chucky continued on his season average pace, he will need to play. I believe Kelly Dickey said he'll need to play in what, 7 postseason games to tie or break Peyton Siva's record. However, Chucky Hepburn is only averaging just over 5 assists per game on the season. He's averaging over 8 assists per game during this win streak. So if Chucky continues to have the type of outings that he's having, I mean, what we're looking at, what is it, 10 or 11 straight games now where he's had at least 7 assists, and it's been 8, 9, 16 in one game. Like there's a there's a very real chance that Reyne can break that. And Peyton Siva came out today on the social channels and basically said as much. Like, I hope he breaks it. If he breaks it, that means really good things for this team. Any official
Yeah.
stats, or I see you're over there doing some number crunching.
Oh no, nothing. I was just seeing if there were any other records that we missed out on. But yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible and it's so telling to the ability that Coach Kelsey has in one season. I mean, we break one record a year, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. What a memorable season to have a potential to break
Hmm.
four, possibly five records in a year with three different players. I think just speaks to his ability to one recruit, bring those guys in, but also to be able to coach them so well. And it sucks that I guess not all three, because James Scott, but it sucks that two of those guys can't continue, because if a guy like Chucky and a guy like Reyne were here for 4 seasons, or God, even 2 or 3, I think they would go down as a top 5 shooter in Reyne's situation, probably top 2, maybe number 1 overall if he was here for 2 3 years, and Chucky probably a top 5 guard of all time for Louisville if he was able to be here for 2 or 3 years.
I think people scoffed at it a little bit, and especially early on, it's an adjustment period, right? But Pat Kelsey said coming in, Reyne Smith he's not one of the best shooters in college basketball. He's one of the best shooters in the world. And Reyne Smith has talked about, how much work goes into that. People have asked him, how do you get off shots so quickly? How are you so confident? He's like, look, I'm getting off so many shots. I can't afford to not think it's going in, right? Like every time he puts up a shot, he is absolutely dead set confident on that shot going in. Like, and you never see him like go like and like try to like run after the ball to grab an offensive rebound. Like he thinks he makes every single shot that he takes. And I mean, I think, from the team's perspective, from the coaching staff's perspective, and now even from the fans' perspective, every time that dude gets the ball in his hands from beyond the arc, like there's a chance it's going up and there's a really good chance that it's going in. I mean, he's been on an incredible streak right now. It's still shooting over 50% in conference road games from beyond the arc. It is fascinating to watch, and really, I mean, it's difficult to put in perspective the type of season that he's having, getting these shots up, because he's taking so many and hitting them at such a high percentage. But yeah, I mean, it was slow out the gate, right? Like it took a little bit to develop. I heard some comments kind of from the peanut gallery, like, okay, yeah, maybe Reyne isn't quite what we expected, but like once he's really turned it on and gotten the full green light and really become accustomed to not just the system, but the people around him, and the pace of play and the physicality of play, in the ACC, he's really taken it to the next level.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's an ability that he's had. God, I mean, I was looking at it even in his freshman year as a pretty underrated recruit. He was immediately playing 20 plus minutes for Pat Kelsey. So I mean, he has been playing a lot of minutes for Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey's had confidence in him for a long time, and I mean, him now being around even more talented players, a guy like Chucky Hepburn, who he's never gotten to play with before, is just providing him an ability to, because he was still taking six, seven threes a game. Now he's taking 8, 9 a game, but he was probably never as open because every game that Charleston was playing last year, he's number one on the scout, 100%. And he still might be in some games with Louisville, but now they've got to worry about Chucky. They've got to worry about Terrence. They got to worry about Javon. They have other players that they can't just sag off on and just leave wide open because they have to focus on Reyne Smith. So yeah, it's been incredible. I am going to be so sad when that man leaves. Hopefully there is 40 plus percentage 3-point shooter out there in the transfer portal ready to go because I mean, if you're watching
Yeah,
this and you're a shooter right now and you're considering transferring next year, how do you not think like,
right.
holy shit, I could shoot 8 threes a game and be wide open on half of them? How would you
Hmm.
not want to come play at Louisville? So
Yeah,
it's
it's
it's been incredible.
well, and there's something to be said too about you have to be really solid fundamentally in every facet of the game to earn the minutes that Reyne Smith gets, right? Like it's not like he's sagging off on defense and then just trying to get open on offense. Like he's not like that rec league dude that, you know, makes six straight threes because, you're playing shirts and skins and somebody's sagging off you, right? Like they're dribbling Reyne every time he gets the ball for the first 10 minutes of the game. But it's inevitable once, things get in motion. Chucky Hepburn has 5, 6 assists in the first 10, 12 minutes of the game. Like, he's going to get open at some point. And when he gets open, he's going to make the vast majority of the shots he takes. He didn't attempt a three until 9 minutes into the game, but it was, pure as a driven snow when he took it. But I mean, guys are hanging off this man like crazy, and it really stretches the defense out significantly. I mean, Louisville started off against Wake Forest, and they were, not making a lot of shots that they normally take and make. They missed 3 free throws to start the game. Like it was a little sloppy, but once they kind of tightened up the screws a little bit, all of a sudden, it just kind of opens the floodgates. And so, I mean, just another fantastic performance from Reyne. But yeah, I mean, with the combination of Reyne Smith, Chucky Hepburn, and James Scott is really a fun trio to watch because they give such consistent effort and they're all so multifaceted, right? Like obviously Ryan is a 3-point specialist, but they are all so solid across the board. They're very good on both ends of the floor, and they just do whatever needs to be done to win the game. It's really it's really fascinating to watch, especially considering Rain and James were playing for college at Charleston last year. Like it's not like they're it's not like they came from Duke or something, right? Like these are guys that have stepped up and stepped in a major way.
Yeah, no, it's I don't think it can be spoken of how impressive it is how this team has played, how
Yeah.
this team has been coached, and individually how they've done. And I think you're right. It is Rain gets all the love in the world for being one of, if not the best shooter in all of college basketball. But I mean, he's not just a shooter. No offense to Ryan McMahon, but like when Ryan was out there, he was a shooter. He was rarely ever getting to the paint. He was not really getting assists, and on defense, he was a liability. But an incredible shooter, and that's why he was on the court. But that's also why he was only on the court for 15 to 20 minutes a game. Rain's ability to get an assist when it's open, attack the basket when it's there, when they're playing too tight on him, and play, honestly, good defense. Like, he's not Chucky Hepburn, he's not Terrence Edwards, but I've never watched a possession of Reyne Smith playing defense and been like, damn, get this man off the court. This is a mismatch. What is he doing? Like, I've never noticed that at all. And that's something that I thought would likely happen, just not knowing Rain's game as well as I should have coming into the season. But I mean, he has been phenomenal in so many different facets of the game that I didn't expect. So yeah, I'm so impressed with this team. I'm about to kill my dog if she doesn't get this squeaky toy. I hid it under the blankets, and then she just spent 20 minutes
Doesn't work.
climbing
It's
around
just
me
a
trying
game,
to.
bro.
And so, and I take it away from her. She has 15 toys she can choose from, but as soon as she loses one gets taken
Hmm.
away from her, she has to know where that one toy is. Like, I've got this, I'm gonna give it to her. No care. She just let it hit the ground. No care at all. But one thing I did want to talk about, and I'm sure you do as well, is like with this win streak, 10 in a row now. How high can the ceiling be for this Louisville team? We'll say, how high can the seed go? Because obviously predicting the NCAA tournament is impossible. There's just no point. It's such a random tournament. But how high of a seed do you think Louisville can attain?
I think, I mean, when you talk about what is the ceiling on the seed, right? I think the ceiling is a 2 seed. I don't think that a 1 seed is attainable. I think a 2 seed is a very, very outside shot where all the pieces have to fall into place, right? But that's running the table against a pretty mid conference schedule for the last 10 games. And then that's winning 3 games in the ACC tournament, including a win over Duke. That's the major key right there. Is that's really your only chance unless Pitt really puts their foot on the gas, or SMU or Clemson really step up all of a sudden. That's really your only chance of getting another quad one win, is for Louisville to face Duke in the ACC championship game and win that game. That's the really your only chance at a 2 seed. I think a 4 seed is the most likely. Like I mean, I would love to see Louisville finish the season on a 23 game winning streak, right? Like that's as far as you could go, right? Because they have 10 regular season games left, 3 games in the ACC tournament, would put you at 23 straight games heading into the NCAA tournament. So if they could win 23 straight going in, I think that a 2 seed is attainable. I think a 3 seed is most like, or would be the most likely if they ran the table. And then a 4 seed is really, I think that's like really the area where I think that they're most likely to land. But I mean, you look across the schedule, it's pretty abysmal, especially the next stretch of games, right? Like you played Georgia Tech, you played Boston College, who's 210th in Ken Palm, Miami, who only has 4 wins on the season as we sit here. They will have an opportunity against Virginia tonight. But then Notre Dame, Florida State again, who you already beat, Virginia Tech, who has been way worse than we expected, and then you finish with a solid little stretch of Pitt, Cal, and Stanford. Stanford being the team that nobody's talking about in the ACC, who's pretty solid. They have a contender for ACC Player of the Year in Maxine Renaud. So uh, overall, though, I think the absolute ceiling is a 2 seed. I think that there's probably 6 teams out there that are really deserving of a 1 seed at this point. But yeah, I mean, 2 seeds the ceiling. 4 seed, I think, is where you most likely land. 5 seed is really where I wouldn't want to land, which is where a lot of people have them right now. That 5-12 game always scares me. You're going to get a really quality, probably the best conference champion outside of a power conference uh, that you're going to end up facing. So I would prefer a 4 seed or better if Louisville can get there. I mean, I don't know how realistic it is to. I mean, we can dream as big as we want to dream, obviously, right? But like a 23 game win streak to end the season is like, I don't care if you go back to the Conference USA days. That's really fucking impressive, Jake. So like, I don't ever want to say never, but like, we're all human here, and there's a obviously a great chance for a slip up. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I thought I was gonna have a hot take saying that I think Louisville can attain a 2 seed, but I'm glad that we're on the same
Go ahead.
page. I think the 1 seed, I don't there's I'll say a 1% chance of a 1 seed, and it would have to
Yeah,
be all the
there's
best teams losing multiple games. We've already got 5
right.
losses, and we just don't have any quality games ahead of us. We have a few quad one wins that we could get in the ACC tournament, but not anything in the regular season. So yeah, I'm with you. I think if we run the table, finish regular season 26-5, get 2+ one wins, play like a because it's top 50 and on neutral site, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so play
So you could
a
play a pick, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you could
Yeah.
yeah, so
SMU.
you could play SMU first round, then you could go and play Clemson, then Duke. That would technically be 3 quad one wins right there.
It's
And
possible. Yeah.
you go on a 23 game win streak. I think we're a 2 seed. But likely, like you said, if we go one loss in the regular season and a loss to Duke in the ACC championship, I think that's a 4 seed at worst. I don't see how they have a 26 and what 6 team that with such a good tournament record not be at
Right.
least a 4 seed. And I think the only way you look at anything worse than a 5 seed is if we lose multiple games in the regular season and we lose a game in the ACC that's not to Duke in the ACC tournament that's not to Duke, then we're looking at probably a 6 or a 7. But I'm with
Okay.
you. I think 4 is our most likely spot as long as we don't slip up more than once in the regular season and then perform well in the ACC tournament. But 5 should be our worst, with 2 being our highest possibility if we just completely knock this thing out of the park.
Scares you the most as you look at this the rest of the schedule. Like where do you see the opportunity for Louisville to slip up? Because you're starting to see this conversation nationally now, right? Like, don't look now, but Louisville's got a real patsy schedule down the stretch. Like, well, is there a chance that Louisville can run the table? Um, I mean, Florida Tech, they're not very good. I mean, we can get into them here in a second, but it's going to be almost a de facto home game when Louisville goes down to Atlanta on Saturday. Kind of a weird one, right? Like 3:45 in the afternoon. That's kind of odd, right? Nothing's easy on the road in conference play, but Louisville has proven that they play almost better on the road than they do at home. So, it's hard for me to look at that game and see Louisville losing unless they play well below their mean, right? Like, so I mean, I look at maybe like a Notre Dame sneaking up on you with, they're kind of a little bit of a sneaky team. Ken Palm only has that as a 4-point win for Louisville right now.
Yeah, I saw that. Why?
Maybe
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, playing at Notre Dame is no like it's never been easy for Louisville at Notre Dame. So Ken Palm has them as the 125th best home court advantage in college basketball. For perspective, Louisville is 88th. So
Hmm.
neither are
That's some
considered
Kenny
great.
Payne years in there dropped us down
Yeah, I don't
assuredly.
know how much. Yeah, I would like to read up a little bit more on how that is determined. But Louisville has dropped what 3 games at home so far this season. Granted, all to very good teams, but regardless, that's still 3 home losses. So, yeah, I mean, look, Notre Dame they're okay. Like they're projected to finish 500 in conference and 1 game above 500. I think that maybe that's the most likely. I think that Stanford really is. Stanford's probably the best team that's left on Louisville's schedule outside of Pitt. But you get Stanford at home on Senior Day. And it's like it's really hard to envision Louisville, especially if we're talking about like where do they slip up. It's hard to envision Louisville coming in on a 19-game winning streak on Senior Day for this now beloved team, and losing to that Stanford team. Like that would be a real shocker. So I mean, to me, like I think the most obvious thing to say is Pitt. Like I mean, Pitt's still got a quality squad. Louisville will be one of their last chances to really bolster their resume as they're finishing out the season. So maybe Pitt. I don't know. Any thoughts on where Louisville could possibly slip up?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Notre Dame is certainly. I watched them in their Georgia Tech game. They don't look very good. They do have a really good sophomore point guard. I can't remember his name right now, but he is really solid. But overall, that team does not scare me. One that kind of does scare me a little bit is at NC State. 4 games from now, they played Duke at home. They only lost by 10. They were competitive for most of that game. They've had a lot of injuries. Brandon Huntley Hatfield's been injured. Mike James has been injured. Like they have a talented roster. I don't know what's been going on all season long outside of the injuries, but they do have talent on that roster. I think that's actually, in my opinion, the sneakiest slip up game. Obviously, we know Pittsburgh is a good team, and Stanford does scare me with Maxine Reynaud because I just don't know who guards him because he's 7 foot and he's so skilled. But yeah, if there's any game that I would be circling that's like maybe we could falter, I think it would be at NC State of all the games. And then obviously Stanford and Pittsburgh are just good teams that could beat us on any given night.
NC State is a great choice. Number one, because you're going on the road to play them. Number two, because they're a solid quality program. That's Louisville has historically been better than them in the ACC. However, they're never a team that you want to see on the schedule, right? Like they're never just a patsy by any means, right? Um, Now they have lost 5 straight games. They lost by 2 to North Carolina. They lost by 3 to Virginia Tech. They lost by 3 to Cal. They lost by 6 to SMU and then 10 to Duke, but it was a close game until, the waning seconds of that game and all the throwing up on the floor and on Brandon Harley Highfield and somebody passing out in the crowd. But I mean, Duke NC State is not projected to win a game until Boston College, which is the game after Louisville. They're Ken Palm has them losing their next 4. They have home against Clemson, away, at California, at Stanford. That's a shitty road trip. So they go out. to California and stay out there to play Stanford. And then they come home to play Louisville. So they'll be coming fresh off a road trip on a Wednesday night to play this Louisville squad. It would be ironic. I really, I should be more plugged in on this, but I think it would be very funny if Mike James came back for the Louisville game. I don't know if he's in for the season or not. I know he hasn't played yet this year. Brandon Huntley Hatfield, as you suggested, has played in 18 of their 20 games so far. They have some solid guys on that team, but definitely not what we saw last year, where they made a run to the Final Four. So, but again, when you talk about best chances to slip up, I think Pitt and Stanford are up there, and I think NC State would be a good team to throw out there. But I guess that would lead me to, what do you want to see out of this game? Like I don't, you know, I'm or out of this team, going forward. Like I'm not big on doing a massive deep dive into Georgia Tech. Like they are who they are. They're not team go squad. They're 67th in the country in adjusted tempo. Um, on defense, they'll try to turn you over quite a bit. They're really forcing the issue defensively. They're coming off of a loss at Notre Dame on Tuesday night, but they also just beat Virginia Tech by 7. They have wins on their schedule against Notre Dame. It's really
That's
about
about
it,
it.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was about to
their
say
wins.
they're 1-10 versus net 100 top 100 teams in the net. So
Oof,
that makes them
not
what
good.
8-1 against teams in the bottom 200 of the NCAA, basically bottom
Yeah,
250 in the NCAA. So yeah,
yeah.
this Georgia Tech team, I'm not concerned about them. They do have three good guards: Lance Terry, Javian McCollum, and Nathan George. Nathan George is second in
Mhm,
the ACC in assists per game behind Chucky. So they do have good guards, but outside of that, they don't really have a lot. And if there's anything that I would look for in an opponent, it would be good guard play, because I know that we have the guards defensively that can stop them. They're an
mhm.
okay offensive team. Like I was looking at their numbers, like they're average. They got a decent assist turnover ratio, 1.28. They average 15 assists a game. That's top 100 in the nation. They turn the ball over 12 times a game. That's like bottom 120.
Yep.
They shoot 34% from three, which is average. They're just an okay offensive rebounding team. They're really bad on defense. That's where their issues truly stem. They allow teams to shoot 36% from three, which is 305th in the nation. So, like, bottom 50 in the nation,
Yeah.
which I don't think you want to be that team when you're playing Louisville. They
Mhm.
give up 73 points a game, which is like 240th in the nation. They don't block a ton of shots. They've barely got a positive rebounding margin. So really, they're an average offensive team with a few skilled guards and a really poor defensive team. I watched them play Notre Dame. They ended up losing by 3, like you said. They do not rotate at all on defense. I mean, they
Yeah.
do, but it's like it's like Louisville's defense last year when you would see rotation, like one guy would get beat and then it would take one pass and it's wide open three, as opposed to like when you watch Louisville's defense, like even if one guy gets beat, which rarely happens, there's another guy there helping on that man with the ball, and then there's another guy rotating to that first primary pass that would come off of that guy. This Georgia Tech team does not rotate. Like you get in the paint, you make one pass, maybe a second, and you're wide open, and that's why they give up such a high percentage of made threes. So I do not think this Georgia Tech team is a team to worry about. Though any given night we could lose. We could go and pull an EKU and shoot 18% from three, and Georgia Tech
Right.
could go crazy. So I never want to say never, but I don't think this is a team that we should be too concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the SMU game is what I would have expected this game to be, right? Like a team that's not a great 3-point defense that will let you kind of slice and dice through them. That screams, Reyne Smith going off and Chucky Hepburn racking up a lot of assists, right? But Louisville, one thing that we haven't talked about a lot that deserves mentioning is the passing has gotten better and better as the trust and teammates has grown. The passing has been phenomenal, not just from Chucky though, across the board. I mean, think about James Scott on Tuesday night, the entry into the post where it gets tipped, and then he just has the presence of mind to tip it out for an open 3-point shot from Fat Edwards. There's just a lot of stuff that doesn't get enough credit. How, uh, how about why am I blanking on his name? Javon Hadley. How about Javon Hadley passing out of the post? We saw a lot of them when Louisville went on a substantial run, where Javon Hadley was getting the ball down in the low post against Wake Forest. Obviously, he was kind of outmatched in that game as far as, trying to post up a 7'1", 250-pound big. But what he can do is draw the attention of the defense and make a cross court kind of over the shoulder type of pass. And we've seen a lot of that from Louisville, right? Like they reverse the ball so much and so quickly, and they do so in such an effective manner. These are passes that in the Kenny Payne era, the passes are going it's into the sixth ring, right? Like it's been
The pass is never being
really,
made. Let's be honest with that.
yeah, yeah,
That pass is never being made by Trey White.
yes. And so you see a lot of these cross court passes, which are leading to open shots. This is stuff that this team practices. Like they're not practicing the JJ Trainer almost falling out of bounds tip into a dunk against who was it, UMBC. Like they're not practicing that stuff. They're practicing cross court skip passes. They're practicing ball movement and manipulating the defense with your eyes. There's just so many things that Louisville just feels so prepared for, and there's so much that this coaching staff has trust in this team to execute. So I think this is a game where Louisville, if they come out, playing, up to their potential, they can name their score, right? Like I think that this is a game that sets up really, really well for Louisville. As I mentioned in the start of the program, McCamish Pavilion, not known as like this great home court advantage. And Louisville always sends a ton of fans there. I think that's absolutely going to be the case this season as well. You should see, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 Louisville fans there. Massive group, massive following in Louisville. And this is the game where they'll send the church groups down. It'll be loud and raucous. You'll hear some CARDS chants. And if you want to watch along as well, Jacob and I will be back joining the 502 Circle on Saturday at 3:45. So make sure you tune in for the watch along as we react to the game. Jake, I want to hear your predictions, and I want to get into recruiting just a little bit, just touch on recruiting. But do you have a score prediction?
God, I don't know. I mean, we were 10.5 point favorites against a good Wake Forest team. We are on the road here. I imagine, God, we'll probably be 19.5 point favorites if I had to guess.
Hmm.
So just going off that, and with Wake Forest, or not with Wake Forest, with Georgia Tech being a bad defensive team, I'm going to say Louisville 83, Georgia Tech 68. So
Yeah,
15 point
yeah.
win, comfortable win.
I could see it being very similar to the last couple of games where Louisville kind of gets out to a big lead, and then, I mean, depth plays a factor, and they really just take the foot off the gas. You'd like to see them, I think the effort's still there, but they're not running any set plays. They're just kind of running out the clock, essentially, being respectful of the opponent, those sorts of things, and also not getting their players hurt, trying to make some spectacular play up by 25 points, right? So
Also,
I see
Chucky
this
actually
being
got
like,
rest for once.
he did.
Only
So he
four
should be
minutes, but that's like 3 more minutes than he normally gets.
he should be primed to go off for this game then. But no, in all seriousness, I see this being like a 88-64 type of game. That's kind of where I would envision it. Uh, I think that it's one that should be kind of over in a hurry. Like you said, Jake, never say never, and we'll be saying that a lot down the stretch. It really takes a lot of mental fortitude when you're on this kind of run to keep upping the ante, to keep increasing, your abilities. But the last 10 minutes of that game against Wake Forest left a lot for the coaching staff to really pick at. So, in one sense, I enjoy that. And I would like to see a team challenge Louisville. Like, I want more of the, maybe not the performance, but the challenge of like the EKU, UTEP. I'm just trying to think of some games that were closer down the stretch. Kentucky, what else? Pitt.
Pittsburgh was
Like,
close.
yeah, Pitt was a great
Clemson was
game.
a good game too, even though we won by
Clemson
10.
was sure, sure. I want to see teams push Louisville like that. I think they need to be pushed as they're going into the postseason. I want to see them continue to develop and become, the finished, polished product that they can become. And the only way to do that is to just continue to work on bettering themselves. So chase some records, chase the ability to, see how many road kills you can rack up, see how many times you can beat a team by 10 or 20 plus points. Like, set your own standard. And that's the way that Louisville basketball gets to what we've come to know and love and expect prior to the cluster that was the last few years. Very quickly, wanted to get into recruiting before we get out of here. So there's been a bit of a, we saw we saw some of the recruits kind of tweeting at each other on social media here recently. I just want to check in with you. I know that Louisville, obviously we have Michael Brown in the fold, but I'm thinking they're going to want to land a couple more guys in this 2025 class. The two massive names that Louisville's in on, it seems like they're going after the heaviest are Elijah Arenas and Nate Mint. Nate Mint has been rumored kind of as a package deal with Michael Brown, right? So, like, what's your take on this? And my question for you would be, if you had to choose between Louisville landing Elijah Arenas, who is a 6'6" combo guard, shooting guard out of California, or Nate Mint, who is a 6'9" power forward, kind of do it all utility type of guy from Virginia. If you had to pick one of these guys, who would it be? And kind of what's your pulse on this entire situation?
Yeah, so I think we've seen the fan base clamoring for another recruit, another landing of a recruit, and the two biggest ones, really the two biggest names available still in this class are the two guys that were in on Elijah Arenas and Nate Mint. I know we made, was it Amint's top 6 and Arenas' top
Yeah,
10,
six,
something
yeah,
like that.
5, 6, something. I don't know. And so they get that, like, it's like, all right, let's
Their hats
play
on a
out,
their
you
hats on a
know?
table at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But no, I think coming in the latter part of 2024, we talked about Nate Ament, and we were trying to pursue him, but everything that we had heard was that he's likely going to Duke, and I think he still very well could end up at Duke. But there seems to definitely be some positive momentum towards him considering Louisville. I know we did that fan stake thing where Louisville is crushing it. They're at like 30,000 staked, and the next closest is Duke at like 4,000. So I'm sure that caught his attention. That just the fan base very clearly wants him there. Landing a player of Michael Brown's caliber makes him want to play with him. I know they are AAU teammates, and then also him seeing that Coach Kelsey is a good coach, that Louisville is going to be a good team with him as their coach. I mean, all the signs in my mind, they make sense as to why he might be flipping his consideration from Duke to Louisville. On the arena side, I think most likely he lands at Arizona. It's where his father played at. I know that his sister is at Louisville, and I'm sure he is considering Louisville. But I think it's going to be very difficult for him to not end up at a program that is as good as Arizona, with them having the history with his father there. If I had to pick between the two, and not just because I think it's more likely we land him, I would take a Mint. He has just like unspeakable amounts of potential. Like with his length and his skill at that height and at that length, I mean, he can be a top 5 draft pick in the NBA next year. And so to give Pat Kelsey a year with him, I can't imagine what he can do. And Elijah Arenas is crazy athletic, very, very talented combo guard as well. One thing that does concern me about him is he was a reclass. He should be in the 2026 class, but he's reclassed the 2025. And it feels like 60-70% of the time, those guys that reclass end up struggling that first year. They still may be good, but they're not top 15 5-star prospect good. They're struggling a little bit. They're averaging 6-7 points. They're not shooting well. They're turning the ball over because they should be seniors in high school. So if I had to land one of them, to me it would be Nate Ament. I think that man has all the world of potential with his ability to score, play defense, shoot, and be 6'9". So if there's one that I could land, Nate Ament, 10 out of 10.
Talking Nate Ament, compare him a little bit for fans who just do not follow recruiting at all. How does he compare to Kenai Roots, who is another talented forward who's really kind of come on and kind of come into his own for Louisville this season as a true freshman?
He's definitely, and nothing, not taking anything away from Kanai whatsoever, but he comes into college with another level of skill, with another level of playmaking, consistent shooting from the 3-point line, ability to score from the mid range, inside from the perimeter. Just to really just to step up in the skill. I think their athleticism. Nateman's probably a little bit taller, a little bit longer. Their athleticism is probably similar because Kanai is really athletic, but he's a full step above when it comes to really every skill that Kanai had coming in as a freshman. But yeah, I could see not really the comparisons, but I understand that if people know what Kanai plays like, they could kind of relate that to how Nate Ament would be.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think a little bit different stylistically, even though they're built very similarly. I'm interested in the system fit, right? Like I'm interested in how Nate Mint fits with his team, the way that it would currently be constructed, right? So you're gonna have Ali Khalifa, who is an excellent passing big man who can play away from the basket, but not super like crazy athletic, more old school type of big. You're gonna have Kanai Roos returning. Then you obviously have James Scott kind of as a centerpiece, at the center. Maybe he becomes more of a four, but that's interesting. That's an interesting dynamic to me when you have James Scott and Ali Khalifa, two guys. I don't know if you play Ali Khalifa as a four. Maybe you do. Look, I'm not going to question what the coaching staff is doing. Clearly, they know
I
what
could, yeah, I could not
they want
imagine him being the
to.
four just with his foot speed on
Yeah,
defense.
it'd be interesting. I don't know if those two guys can play together. Maybe they can. I mean, and look, they're probably already kind of getting involved in that in practice right now. And then obviously there's a chance of Case and Prime coming back. And so how does he fit into the mold? So if you throw Nate Mint into that, he really has to have an understanding and grasp of what his role would be for this Louisville team. With if that's the roster, if you have Case and Prime returning, if you have James Scott returning, if you have Ali Khalifa as a big man kind of coming into the fold. Where does everybody fit? What's the dynamic of this roster? Can you play Nate Mint with Ali Khalifa and James Scott? Can you play Nate Mint with James Scott and Kason Pryor if he returns? Like, there's a lot to kind of take into consideration. But I think it's kind of a fascinating conversation as you enter the offseason, especially if you land a guy like that. So this roster is shaping up to be really solid again next season, especially if you can keep the guys that are the young, talented dudes in the fold. All of a sudden, you're looking at this becoming, you're developing a program at that point, and that's what's really exciting to me. So, look,
Yeah,
this year has flown by. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Things have. If you got anything, I apologize.
no, I was gonna say it just kind of hit me as you were bringing up Case and Pryor. I think not that they're super similar players, but compared to Kanai, I think that Nate Mint is more of a Case and Pryor build than he is a Kanai Ruths. He is that four that is gonna be able to put the ball on the ground and is going to be able to pull up off a ball screen but is also going to be able to play on the inside. So I think if fans don't know anything about him, if you've seen Case and Pryor play, it is somewhat similar to that, where it's a huge dude handling the ball, able to drive the basket, will hit a step back three, will do things like that. So if there's anything Nateman has to work on, size, he is really skinny,
Yeah.
but a year to college program can fix that. But yeah, I'm excited. God, if we somehow ended up with Ali Khalifa, Kason Pryor, Javon Hadley, Nate Mint, all four of those dudes, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I doubt that happens just because
James
I
Scott.
don't
Did
know
you
if
take
all
James
those guys.
Scott?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
James Scott. Yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah.
happens because that's a lot of front court players, and you only have so many minutes. But my goodness, the sky would be the limit for that team next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you want to continue this great mix of experience with young talent. I think that's been the equation for a while. I think that the coaching staff seems to have a really good grasp of that. When I say that, they do have nine like super seniors on this team, but it would still you'd still be aging up as you continue down the line, and I think that's the goal with the modern transfer portal, NIL, the way that everything is shaping up right now is to continue to age up, to continue to be experienced, and really find players and pieces that can play off each other, that can be unselfish, and that can fit really well in the system for Louisville. But yeah, like I said, the hour's flown by. We've come so far from just trying to piece together 20 to 30 minutes during the Kenny Payne era of talking about the same stuff to trying to squeeze all of the great news from Louisville basketball into 1 hour. So thank you guys for tuning in. We don't ask for this a lot, but like, comment, subscribe, wherever you're watching or listening. Like, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Why not? You'll get a notification every time something comes up. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, give us a rating, even if it's 1 star. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. We don't ask for that much, but we'd love to continue to grow and to find other people that share a common passion with us. So, Jake, it's been a blast. We will see you guys on Saturday for the watch along. Until then, follow us on social medias, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, Starting 502 podcast. Let's get out of here and go Cards.
Go Cards.